Welcome back to Money Pop. The jobs report came out this Friday morning, and I want to walk you through the highlights. This is going to be a slightly shorter rundown because a lot of this information is going to feed directly into some bigger videos I have lined up in the near future. So consider this your quick but important status update on where the labor market actually stands right now. When you look at the report at face value, it really does come across as a solid one. The economy added 177,000 jobs for the month of April. That figure beat expectations, which had been sitting at around 130,000, so on the surface, that looks like a healthy number, and it gives the impression that hiring across the country is still moving along at a reasonable pace. But I want to give you some context, because a single month in isolation does not really tell the full story. If you look back over the past 16 months or so, the amount of jobs added each month has been pretty choppy. Some months you will see roughly 180,000 jobs added, and then another month the number drops dramatically, or there are big downward revisions. When you compare current numbers to what we were seeing back in 2022, 2023, and 2024, today's figures are noticeably lower. So while April looks decent on its own, the broader trend is one of cooling compared to the post-pandemic hiring boom. Now let me move to what I consider the most important figure in this entire report, and that is the unemployment rate. This is the number that the Federal Reserve focuses on most when they are evaluating the strength of the labor market. The rate of unemployment remained unchanged at 4.3%. That stability is significant. In the Federal Reserve's latest projections, they expect the unemployment rate to end the year at 4.4%. So where we are right now, at 4.3%, is actually still within good standing according to their own expectations. In other words, we are not at a freak-out moment where the Federal Reserve needs to make an emergency decision or a critical pivot in policy. They can essentially sit back, watch the data, and relax for now. While unemployment stays around the 4.3% mark, that is a very different environment than one where joblessness is spiking and the central bank is forced to act quickly. Next, I want you to take a look at the average growth in wages. According to the report, wages are growing at a rate of 3.6%. Now, in my opinion, this is actually not great news for the average worker. And here's why. Wage growth at 3.6% is not really keeping up with the true rate of inflation that Americans are experiencing in their daily lives. That means everyday people continue to lose purchasing power even when their paychecks technically go up. To illustrate this, take a look at the M2 money supply, which measures the broad supply of money in the economy. That figure has been expanding at a rate of nearly 5% over the past year. If you mark off 5% on the chart and then compare it to the 3.6% wage growth figure, the gap between those two numbers represents roughly how much purchasing power the average American has been losing over the past year or so. Your dollars are simply not stretching as far as the expansion of the money supply, and wage gains are not closing that gap. This is one of the quiet but very real pressures squeezing household budgets right now, even while the headline jobs number looks strong. Now, I want to show you how today's jobs report has shifted the odds of an interest rate cut at the next Federal Reserve meeting. This data comes from the CME FedWatch tool, which tracks market expectations for rate decisions. The next Federal Reserve meeting is scheduled to take place on June 17th. Before today's report came out, there was a 4.7% chance that the Federal Reserve would cut interest rates at that June meeting after the jobs report was released. The odds of a rate cut in June increased from 4.7% to 6.1%. So yes, the probability did move up, but only modestly. More importantly, there is still a 93.9% chance that the Federal Reserve is not going to cut interest rates in June. That is an overwhelming majority of probability pointing toward no change. Now let me show you the odds for the July meeting, because some investors are looking past June to see if relief might come a little later in the summer. Before the jobs report was released today, there was an 8.8% chance that interest rates would be lower by the July meeting. After the jobs report came out, the odds of a rate cut by July increased from 8.8% to 12.1%. So while the odds of a rate cut have increased for both June and July, the probabilities are still tilted heavily in favor of no change to the interest rate. The market is essentially telling us that traders do not expect the Federal Reserve to act anytime soon, and the underlying reasoning is fairly logical when you put all the pieces together. I want you to really understand the situation here. The situation is that the jobs report was not a disaster. It actually beat expectations. Unemployment held steady at a level the Federal Reserve is comfortable with, and wage growth, while weak in terms of purchasing power, is not collapsing either. So if the report was not a disaster, that means the labor market does not need any rescuing right now. And if the labor market does not need rescuing, then it makes very little sense for the Federal Reserve to step in and cut interest rates. That is exactly why we continue to see the probabilities remain high that the Federal Reserve will hold rates steady in both June and July. The central bank has consistently said it wants to see clear evidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward its target before easing policy. A jobs report that comes in above expectations